Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Type Thursday Book Club, episode 7. This week, we are reviewing Steve Krug's Don't Make Me Think. We blind reviewed the book each individually. We're together now live, 3 experts in design. Are we going to love it? Are we going to hate it? Well, we're going to find out tonight. So our hosts are myself. I'm Thomas from Type Thursday HQ Global. I have also Michael from Type Thursday Phoenix and Matheo from Type Thursday Los Angeles. Good to see everybody. Hope you're all doing well.
Good to see
you.
Good to see you.
So what's Type Thursday? Type Thursday is a meeting place for people who love type. We're a community for creatives who are passionate about typography and design. We have physical meetups once a month in cities around the world. Be sure to check it out if Type Thursday is in your city. If Type Thursday is not there, reach out to starting a chapter. We also have the book club. When we're not in physical Type Thursday events, we're doing the Type Thursday book club, and that's what we're doing here together. Well, with that said, like I said, this week we are reviewing Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug. And the way we do this review is, remember, it's a blind review. We did it based on 5 criteria we do every week. To remind you for those who are new, those criteria are clarity of concepts, visual inspiration, practical application, typographic insight, and lastly, overall impact. So on that note, as we transition through into our FigJam board, we use a 5-star rating system. 5 stars, absolutely outstanding. On that note, 3 as we transition. Got a little lag going on. 5 stars for really great signification of a metric. 3 stars is pretty good. 1 star could be better, right? So with that said, let's jump in. Okay, so our first category is clarity of concepts. How clear are the ideas and the arguments explained in the text? So I think this is one of the book's greatest strengths. So I think its core idea is very immediate and memorable. A good interface should be self-evident. Krug's argument is that users should not have to stop to interpret what something is, where they are, and what they are to do next. I think that very much the framing about thinking about removing questions and declaratives versus questions, as in addressing where am I, where should I begin, what is most important, why is this called that term. I think these are really great insights, very straightforward but very clear in terms of the clarity. The book is excellent at identifying the basic mental friction points that make interfaces really feel confusing. I thought this thing is why it's so insightful. It also gives very usable language for describing them. It accounts for scanning. That's especially important. Users don't patiently read interfaces. They glance, they glean, they move fast, they make judgments in a very partial attention way. That framing is really durable and really importantly sharp. So I think other aspects I'm thinking about was idea of self-evident versus explanation. I think those are really nice distinctions there. Knowledge, basically, users suffice rather than optimize. So I think it's very much instead of people freaking out over the optimization of like the best answer, they just do what's sufficient, what's necessary for them to get their job done. That each click should be a low friction choice, and that testing informs judgment, does not confirm it. I think that's a huge point. I think that's actually right there. It's like the book's value by itself. So with all that said, what is my rating? My rating is 5. Because the book explains usability with a rare plainness. It strips the issue down to human attention, uncertainty, and recognition. There's no fog. There's no academic kind of performance here. It's just an incredibly sharp argument. So I think for that reason, those are a rating of a 5 for me. Michael, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So I believe that this is going to be a crowded space, but I want to give you a little background on my rating here. So when I think it was like 2008, I had started a new job and I was kind of transitioning from print into web. And before my boss at that time let me work on anything, he gave me 2 books. He gave me Eat the Frog, 21 Great Ways to Stop Procrastinating by Brian Tracy. And he gave me this book. And I am a better person today for it. So my rating, like I said, it's going to be a 5 as well. the greatest thing that I could have gotten at the time was, understanding about usability, and also, literally don't make me think. And what does that even mean? And I believe that, when I was learning about kind of the concepts here, they were really new to me, but there are ones that really resonated with me because I had already been using them, but I had to use them as a designer. And so this book was instrumental in my development, learning how people interact, how what's the shortest path to get them get a consumer, or the people that you're trying to reach, to get them to do what you want them to do. And so again, I love this book. So 5 out of 5 for me.
Well said, Michael. And I love the context around your career too, and like what happened, and having a boss basically hand you like, yep, before you begin working, you're gonna do this before you touch anything. I haven't yet read the Eat the Frog. I've heard great things. I think that's a book that I need to pick up. But I did read Steve Krug's Don't Make Me Think. And it was at a time where I was going from studying graphic design and to web design. And at that time, in the world of web, you couldn't read about websites and web design without uncovering UX and UI principles and theories that were like just blowing up, right? And I felt like, again, not a lot of people explain these concepts clearly with examples and thoroughly. They would talk very theoretically and without visual examples. And something that Steve Krug did differently here with this book is he provides a lot of support for you to see and understand, while he keeps his explanation clear and concise. And for that reason, I'm going to jump in here. And I landed right smack on a 5 too with you guys, because this is Steve's strongest area of this book, I think, is clarity of concepts.
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, just everything is so straightforwardly presented. It's actually very difficult and hard to do that, I find, generally. And I think there is some rigor that gets lost when that happens a little bit, in the sense of like self-evident versus self-explanatory, right? I think that's actually a very important distinction. I found that was because of the clarity. He kind of he gave you explanation about it, but not in a very systematic way. But that's like higher level. That's like a much more sophisticated level of investigation. But in terms of like a great introduction text, I think I could not ask for better for this book to present those ideas.
Yeah, I go back to it quite a bit, and I love that it's been revised over time. And so it was nice to see this, because I hadn't actually read the updated version of it. So yeah, so it was very, very very relevant, especially because it also reminded me, is now in my teaching career, about we're not just decorating things to make them look pretty. We have to make them functional, but we can also bring in some beauty to it and some finesse as well. So a lot of these concepts, I wasn't aware that I was teaching them, but it was a nice to see them again, and it was a foundation of a lot of the teaching that I do.
Absolutely, Michael. And there's so many times where Steve helps you as a teacher, helps you as a student really understand the concepts, because he approaches it in such a simple terms that anybody can understand and follow along. And what I love throughout the whole book is his illustration work. If he worked with an illustrator to basically kind of give you these ideas and kind of bring home the concepts that he's explaining, and help you understand, is like, as we're looking at a header and the logo, it gives you the sense of your home. You're at, this is your home base, right? If you move through the website, you can get back home anytime, right? And so I think he also explains that you shouldn't be busting the standard convention, and he calls out designers love to reinvent the wheel. But if you went to a car rental place and you got in the car and the gas pedal was where the brake is supposed to be, you would go give that car right back. You know, you'd be in an accident or dead, you know, if you were expecting to slam on the gas or slam on the brakes and hitting the gas instead. And it's such a, and he has so many other metaphors he uses like that that just really bring home the ideas and help you clearly understand in a comical way and pretty hysterically too. So yeah, well done, Steve Krug, on this.
Very good. All right, onward. Yeah, because there's no disagreement. Everybody's just saying how great it is. All right.
Yep.
Yes. So on visual inspiration, which is the strength and originality of the visual material. So for generally understanding is what the eye candy, right? The wham bam, like, oh my God, I feel like I'm a better design. Like I feel inspired to make something because how great this is laid out or the artwork that's in it. Gotta be honest. That ain't what this book is about. This is not what this book is about. It is functional, it's servable, and the ideas are incredibly important, but you're not getting necessarily visual inspiration. The design examples really do help explain the points, but they don't provoke a kind of formal excitement and typographic delight or compositional ambition. That's not its purpose. But with that said, one of the things important that there is ideas of like visual cueing, hierarchy, prominence, chunking content, minimizing noise, nesting placement, scanning patterns, affordances, and signifiers. I mean, these are all very important ideas being visually shown to you. So generally, it's the visuals are meant to be clarifying devices as opposed to being sources of inspiration. So even though I'm going to roll this one, we're giving us a 1, but it's not because of detrimental critique of the book. It's just that based on the way we're talking about visual inspiration compared to the other books, it's just that it isn't operating in that category. It's not trying to engage in enlarging someone's sense of design possibility. It's trying to help us think through a more nuanced understanding of the concepts. It's incredibly useful, but it's not it's not going to be visually inspired by it. It gives you principles and not kind of a pretty picture. So for those reasons, and again, it's not detrimental to it, just saying don't come to this book expecting visual inspiration. You're not going to get it. That's why I'm giving it a 1.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with you. I'm not going to go as low as you. I'm actually going to put myself right here as a 3. You're absolutely right. It's they're helpful visuals. They're functional, not inspirational by any stretch, but they definitely get the point across and help you with those clarity of concepts that we spoke about before. And you're going to flip through these pages. Not a lot of design inspiration, and you're not going to want to create anything ornate, but you're actually probably going to simplify your designs and make them more functional, which is actually the purpose, I believe, for this book.
Like, Michael, you said it very well. The illustrations and the visuals in this book, they help provide further clarity of the concepts. So I think Steve Krug did a really good job sort of marrying visuals to the ideas he's trying to explain, so you can more easily understand and interpret it, while he's got the comedic his spin on it. So I love the humor that he has, because he's got this sketch art style, comic book style, like from the old newspapers where you'd like read a comic that was funny. And I like that he took that approach here, because a lot of the text that I was reading about web design was so dense at the time when I was studying in school. And this was a breath of fresh air, because he took such a fun and human approach to writing about the web and writing about the decisions that we're making, and this concepts of don't make me think. So for visual inspiration, something that you see is you get these diagrams just like this, right? And these diagrams help you to interpret, like when you look at a browser, what's going on, what is someone thinking and feeling, and what are they going through. And he kind of has these thought bubbles too. And then he also has a great example where he shows you a website in another language, and what you notice there is that even though that website is in like it's I think Mandarin, you can tell right away that it's a news website because of the way they follow convention. And you can tell there's articles and features and headers. And he says, if you don't believe me that there's a power in following convention, just look at how much you understand as a user looking at this website where you don't know the language, but you know how you can follow along and what media is being served to you. And if you click somewhere, what you might find, right? If you want to read a story and how you could go deeper into it. So I thought for me, the visual inspiration comes along with the sort of concept of clarity in a way. So I didn't want to rank it right at 1, but I was like, I can't, hold on, I'm gonna bring up my board here. I was like, I can't also rank it somewhere high. So I'm pretty much right in the middle with you guys. I'm going to rank it right at 2 for visual inspiration. When we think about Don Norman's design of everyday things, you got like no visuals there whatsoever. And the ones you did, they were black and white and just like dull. And then when you look at Steve Krug's take on this, there's color. The book is designed nicely. He worked with the designer at the publishing house. They incorporated visuals that are visual aids and illustrations. So I do want to kind of, hats off for that. Like there's some visual aid here to go along with this book. And I think that is helpful as a designer.
Okay, so we got some good tensions, but as we see, we have Matheo splitting the difference in terms of. I think that's certainly fair, especially in contrast to design of everyday things. Yeah, this is first of all, it is less information dense, obviously, right? Like design of everyday things really it's a full textbook, right? It's a full proper, not like little textbook versus this. This is much lower in word count, right? Its density of information much less. But I do agree. It is laid. It actually has design intention. I don't know if Roger. I don't know who designed. I know Roger Black gave the forward of the edition I read. And Roger Black's a very famous editorial designer. So I'm not that surprised. It makes sense that it would be laid out with some sensitivity to typography and hierarchy and all that good stuff. I do agree. The shtick of like the 1950s cartoon character illustrations is kind of fun. I do agree. So I had to say, you're kind of warming me. I maybe get a 1.5 after this discussion a little bit, but my rating's locked in, so I can't change it.
Yeah. I was, this week I was teaching my college students. We're making tables in InDesign, and even teaching those fundamentals of just like, blocks, like what goes in those blocks and how do you split those blocks? How do you, and the information that goes in there, like the hierarchy, like what does that even mean? And I feel like I was channeling a lot of my the lessons of this book in my teachings, because that's exactly what I was saying. Like, why is this? I showed some bad examples of tables as well. Like, why is this bad? It's because the information is foggy. You don't know what to look at. Your eye doesn't go to anything. But if you do it correctly, it'll flow and will get the effect, especially on an e-commerce website. What do you want them to do? You want them to get the shortest path to making that sale. So as a designer, that's what our job is. Hopefully, in the end, we probably don't get paid for making sales, but we have to make that flow very simple.
Well said, Michael. There's so many ways that you have to simplify the interaction for the customer. I think Steve Krug does a great job at that here, kind of like illustrating that for us with these cute illustrations. I think the great thing that the illustrations do is they make fun of exactly what happens, right? He's like, you're gonna have some thought bubbles. Here they are, and when encounter a bad website, you're just kind of scratching your head and like, why does that link say that? Like, why would this thing that I'm looking for be worded that way? But then you find out that's what you've been, that's where the page is nested under, and it was just a poor design. The other thing he makes fun of is, the developers and designers who sit into a focus room and watch someone try to use their software for the first time, and they just are like yelling, like, just click the software button. And so I thought that was hilarious. His stories and anecdotes that he shares along with this, it's just really, really great book.
Noted. All right, onward. Practical application, the usefulness for teaching and professional practice. I kind of have a feeling what everybody else is going to do. I'm going to like save the suspense. We're going 5. We're going strong 5 on this one, because listen, I mean, the application, it is funny considering like I got the first edition. I didn't get the revised edition. So it is strong early 2000, early like 90s. It's 90s internet. Okay. There's like discussion of above the fold discussion. Okay. But yet, nevertheless, with this like anachronistic kind of almost skeuomorphic orientation of this overemphasis of convention and that mode of thinking about it, like thinking newspapers go on the web as a one-to-one correlation, even with that, it still holds up even with those limitations. Like I held no penalty against Krug writing that way or talking in that mode. Maybe he updated in the revised edition, but even if he didn't, listen, the clear visual hierarchy, chunking content, minimizing noise, prominent signaling importance, remove half the words, then remove another half again, reduce ambiguous choices, use navigation as reinsurance, design for scanning and speed, account for context, viewpoint, and distance, use testing to expose friction, understand that good enough is often beats optimal in real behavior. Listen, these are outstanding insights that stand the test of time, regardless. Like anyone can learn this. This is such an important details to learn this. This book is timeless in that sense, in these points. And I think actually the big note is that the user does not behave like an idealized rational chooser. That's a huge, like that alone. That's like which is, by the way, the principle of behavioral economics, like that basic like behavioral economics, like it's like, I don't know which one came, likely that came first and then Krug's building on this argument, but who knows? Either way, that heuristic alone, just because something is the rational choice doesn't mean it's going to be the right choice for your users. That's huge. I think that's already like a great heuristic to use. And the reason why he's saying this is because of the sufficing quality of people making decision-making based on that. Not the best choice, it's just a good enough choice. I think that's incredibly important. And that alone is just practical insights worthwhile right there. It's immensely actionable. It gives designers, writers, and stakeholders a common language of fixing real design problems fast. I think it's the other thing too. Instead of being like non-designers getting overwhelmed by our technical language and formal thinking, but nevertheless, what we do it's intelligible to them by, do I have to think? If I feel that friction of thinking through, it's not working because the thinking is getting in the way. That's something we can all understand each other with. So I think that's a really important detail.
Absolutely. So, like I said, this is going to get crowded here. I'm definitely going 5 here. So this is extremely actionable. So learning about navigation, hierarchy, usability testing is one of the first times I learned about usability testing. But also, I mean, these are all things that you can, immediately apply to websites. But then when let's see, it would have been 2008, like 7 or 8, that the iPhone came out, and I kind of saw like where apps were going. So it was actionable on that. But I was learning also, I was passionate about typography. So I figured typography would like fit into this. And one of the funny parts about this whole thing was at the time that I was reading this, I was actually developing things in Flash for websites. So accessibility and usability wasn't even really an issue. It was more about kind of like bells and whistles back then. And I used to have these discussions with the marketing people that these websites were not converting. And through this book, I kind of learned, I'm like, I don't think they're meant to convert. So I had to have these kind of tough discussions, and it taught me how to make better websites in the end. And then in the next couple of years, I started learning to develop WordPress websites, which actually helped me with my UI UX career. So again, this was kind of the genesis, and I'm so glad that I got this book. And it's even more practical today in the age of accessibility and usability testing and knowing your customers as well. So again, 5 out of 5 for me.
Solid. I love that, Michael. I guess I'll follow the trend and get in here with my Figma rating. 1 second. Well, there it is. So for practical application, this book is where it's at. If you're a student and you're trying to learn product design, interaction design, web design, you need this book. You got to start here, especially because it's so approachable and when you're early in your career, a lot of the things that you're going to read are going to feel sort of technically heavy, very dense informationally, and it's just hard to get up to speed, in any of when you pick up some of these advanced books and articles. And the way Steve Krug breaks it down is so that you can approach it with ease and humor, which is great. And like Michael, in my career, I started learning WordPress. Shout out to Morten Rand Hendrickson, who taught and still teaches. Originally back then it was lynda.com, and then it got acquired by LinkedIn, and he's been part of the LinkedIn team for I think a decade now. Wonderful teacher, and I followed along learning from him WordPress, and it's the mission of WordPress to this day is to democratize the web, and I loved that. And it also got me learning how to build user interfaces, learning how to build systems that could scale, working with existing code bases and understanding why there were conventions. And there were definitely times in my design career I tried to break the conventions, and then I'm like, I later on realized why it didn't hit right. And like you said, Michael, when we all too often try to reinvent the wheel as designers, get the bells and whistles and make it flashy, it looks great, but then guess what? You go and you pull the metrics, the analytics, and it's not converting, which means it's not driving the sale. Your customers, overwhelmed, and they can't figure out how the damn thing works or where to find what they need. A great metaphor that Steve Krug uses, and I always use this with all my clients when I try to explain to them too, because a lot of folks, when we talk about design and web design or interaction design, they get lost, right? Like everyone thinks they know and understand, and these startup founders think they get it because they're a startup founder and they're an owner in a company. But as soon as you get into the weeds and you start showing them designs, they're like, I need to change this. No, we can't change that. Why can't we? Well, if we changed that, it would be walking into a grocery store, seeing a sign that says there's the milk, and you go there and there's no milk. So the convention needs to be the convention. And it takes us through the whole flow map. He has a flow chart that he shows of if you walk into a store, you're going to read the signs, go to that aisle and try and find what you're looking for. And here's what the process looks like as a flow chart. If you don't see what you're looking for, you're going to get pissed off and consider leaving or ask for help. But a lot of times people will just leave altogether. And in the web, they're like sharks. People have to keep moving or they die. And I read that and I was like, oh man, what a amazing concept. And I have used that throughout my career in so many ways. So the practical application here is very strong. I even think too that don't make me think could even be these concepts are so time lasting, standing the test of time. You could take these and lift these concepts and apply them to what you're doing in graphic design, what you're doing in type design. Don't make people think you can't break the standard convention of an A, of a B, of a C with your you can push something here and there, but it's got to be usable and approachable in some way. So I think this can even apply to other areas of design as well.
Excellent. All right, again, unanimous voting. So onward we go. No disagreements about this. Okay, typographic insight, the depth of typographic thinking, if applicable. So obviously this is a big question mark here. Yeah, here's the thing. It's not obviously because it's not technically heavy. This isn't dealing with typography. It's not going to go through and talk you through anatomy or typographic terms or type styles and legibility or even things like contrast, like figure ground contrast, things like that. That's not really what this is about. It's much more. It will give you insights that you apply to typography. Just require a little application. Usually with an instructor to work with you or you using your mind a little bit. So things like prominence, visual hierarchy, chunking, reducing word count, minimizing noise, language, visual cues, things like that. I think basically it's very important. It's a good supporting text, right? Part of that larger conversation. So actually, I think in combo with Bringhurst, if you think this and next week's book club on Bringhurst for Spoiler, I think that's a great combo right there. But as a book, in and of itself, I think it gives you the emphasis of the idea of usability and how language needs to be shaped for people to engage with it in a useful manner. That's very useful, but in and of itself, which typography is meant to honor and to reflect, especially when it's on the web. So, but that said, though, based on the actual content of the book, I landed it on a 2 because the book offers useful typographic consequences but it's not rich inside and of itself. And I think that's my general takeaway right now.
We must have all looked at each other's notes somehow. We're vibing here. I don't know how we did this. I'm also going with a 2 as well here.
Wow, okay.
It's kind of incredible. Yeah, it's minimal direct focus on typography, but the principles apply, and clarity, hierarchy, readability. But it doesn't go into typography itself. But another something that should be also noted that proximity has a lot to do with a lot of the concepts as well. And again, it served me well in my UI UX career, knowing these different things. But mostly, like, I was taking my typographic passion and really chunking things down and making it a lot easier to read. And also another thing too is, and I kind of thank mobile for this. Actually, you can't be as verbose on mobile as you can like on a desktop or even a book. So you actually have to make you have to say more with less. And that actually is great. I actually like that concept. And sometimes when I had too many things, it was hard to kind of like make them all work together. But if you have less and you make them work better, it's actually much more effective, I believe. And so again, those are all concepts that I've taken in my career. So typographically, it's not inspirational, but I do use it quite a bit in my work.
Well said, Michael. I was flipping through because I'm trying to find this chapter, and there's the chapter on omit needless words, and he crosses out the word needless. He also starts off by referencing E.B. White's The Elements of Style, which I think is where Robert Bringhurst got his inspiration for the elements of typographic style. And E.B. White writes, omit needless words. Vigorous writing is concise. A sentence should contain no unnecessary words. A paragraph, no unnecessary sentences. For the same reason that a drawing should have no unnecessary lines and a machine, no unnecessary parts. So I thought this was really beautiful. And I think this chapter itself lends itself to like writing, and sort of, he does have a section, I was looking for it, where he shows you heading structures for the web, and he gives you typographic insights on here's how to structure heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. But he even gives you a comparison. Look what happens when you don't style them and you leave them to default. All these look too important and they're fighting with each other. And then if you style it and you give one more emphasis than the other, you create that first read, second read, third read. So for me, that's why I also have landed myself right smack at a 2. So I think we must have been all in psychic synchrony over here. It was just crazy. I can't believe we all voted the same here, but hey, Steve Krug is consistent.
Yeah, Matheo, I think these are great points. I think especially that's what I think. Like, he does talk about it, but again, it's like the perspective about typographic interventions are like solely different from ours, right? He's not talking about leading. He's not talking about contrast. He's not talking about genres of type, which type genres you're using. You see, so that's why all of us are like, we can't give it higher than a 2, because but it's clearly, obviously, it applies. Like, you need to know what he's saying so that, again, like Bringhurst next week is going to make sense. Bringhurst makes sense when this is in your play, when this is in your tool set. So I totally agree. I think it's kind of interesting. We all came to the same conclusion considering our backgrounds in type. There's no knock on it. It's just that it's just not what it's built for. This book is in and of itself not built to be the typographic insight book, but it definitely sets you up for it with the other texts. That's for sure.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Our last section. Overall impact. Lasting relevance and influence in the design field. All right. We're not gonna spoil. I have a feeling. I think I know what our conclusion is going to be as a group. I have a feeling. Whoa. Okay. 5. not even debatable. The very fact that this text is being cited even now, like 30 years later, it's crazy, especially on the web. Like that's a little nuts considering, again, even despite its skeuomorphic bias of the 1990s, it still endures as an insightful insight. It's amazing. Insightful insight. It's just an insightful document. It's quite amazing. I think actually another, by the way, we didn't talk about it that much. I think its mode of user testing is the par excellence. Like he synthesized basically, listen guys, do get 3 to 5 people. Just do it with 3 to 5. That super heuristic is it's just a game changer. And the very fact of stop arguing about what you think is the right move in the boardroom. Cut it out. Not useful. It's not useful. Everyone shut up, put it in front of the users, and get the answers that way. That's a huge insight because you're not like sitting pondering in great philosophical aesthetic mode of what is the ideal state of this web page, right? Because he says that's useless because you might be completely wrong. You might be completely mistaken, let alone the fact of like, because it sets up it breaks the model of like the artiste, the fine artiste with the genius who's in the boardroom and fighting the fight to get beauty out in the world because corporate demand and capital stopping you because they have no taste. Like he just obliterates that whole framework, in my opinion, because I think a big note is in that user testing. He says, listen, look for surprise, shock, inspiration, and passion. That's huge. So the point is like, you're not, the entire, like, I think it's completely shaped my higher teaching methodology, my higher level classes. Like once foundations are taught and skills are taught, now we actually have the question of making with users and people and clients. Now it's all about, I actually have my students do that. They make prototypes and test it in the world, which is, by the way, not the normal mode of teaching in design. Normally you're in the studio room and that you got to play the simulacrum of like the professor acting as a client or acting as the user, but that's not really the reality. Versus, no, you go make the thing and put it in front of people who are actually going to use it. And then guess what you find out? You were wrong. You're going to get surprised. Something's going to pique their interest. It's going to get frustrated about things you didn't even anticipate. It creates that, the language of human-centered design and empathetic states. And quite frankly, makes design much more empirical. It's a mode of empirical investigation. I think that is a foundation that talk about, if there's ever, we were talking about last week, like off the charts, I find this text is one of those examples because it sets up an entire new paradigm of how design could be considered. And it doesn't even try to do that. It's not even its goal, but its consequence is that because it's so applicable. And if you actually apply a design methodology based on this, you'll get less drama, less stress, more effective outputs, more likely it actually gets out in the world and has the impact it's supposed to do. And God forbid, actually beautiful at the same time. Like you actually have a fighting chance because now you're not beauty no longer the beautiful no longer becomes this like great contest of fighting with like the people who just don't get it. Like you're the ones that you got it, you get it, and everybody else doesn't get it. It sets up this elitist attitude. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's not effective. So I find for these reasons a very enthusiastic 5-star, maybe a 6 if we had it, but we don't, so we get 5 stars. And that's all I got.
I love it. I love it.
Nice.
So great minds think alike. And you would expect that I did a 5. I'm actually going to do a 4.5, and I will justify this one. So for beginners and intermediate designers, this is a total game changer. Obviously, a book that should be read by any designer out there. For experienced designers, it's a reminder and a bit of validation for a lot of the thinking that we have. It's still incredibly valuable. And the reason why I took it down a little bit is something that I was kind of reminded about is kind of why I got into design, which was, I wanted to express my emotions, but also my expressive design. And I remember during this time being really influenced by a lot of websites that were super cool and really didn't have to have a function to them. And I love just the experimentation of that. This book does not really lean into that at all. It leans into clarity, usability, but emotion, I feel, is a little bit stripped here, especially with like visual identities, you know, because I love visual identities. And I also, at the time that I kind of what got me into the web was, you know, a lot of really experimental web design that I don't see anymore. And so it kind of took that out. So like everything is not a business as well. So that's the only reason why I took it down. But otherwise, like this is, if you're going to be someone who works, you know, as a working graphic designer or anything in that realm, or web designer, this is a must read for anybody like that.
I'm gonna fight you, Michael. I'm gonna fight you on that.
All right.
Because I'm landed right smack at a solid 5 for overall impact. And where you said he strips away the beauty and the fun, the creativity and the experimentalness, he actually does give one reference to a well done experimental project that was a web design project. And it was that I think it was a news site. They had like some jazz, New York Jazz Festival kind of spacing, but you got photos of all these amazing artists, and they turned the photography into a navigation system. So if you clicked on their headshot, you would click in and read their bio, and you could click to the next one. And so they did some, and he said this is an example of when you can do an experimental project, but also give them if at some point they fatigue of this experimental navigation, they even had a fallback of here's the regular lay of the land that you're used to, like a site map or like an index with all the names and the who was in the band and stuff. And so it falls back to being just usable. And I thought that was a great reference. For me, the overall impact of this book is a solid 5, especially because, like you guys said, it was originally written in a time where it's like old school web, 90s. It gets revised, and it could have been outdated. I mean, look at all the advancements in technology that have happened in the past year, let alone the past 5 years and 10 years since this book has been published. And we still pull this out, cite it today, and use it as a source of reference. And that's a testament to Steve Krug's impact on the industry from a web design perspective. And it went further than that. Even though he talks about web design, the concepts are so strong, they impact mobile, app design, UI, UX, interaction design, product design. And as we go from phones now advancing to extended reality, which is a blend of virtual reality and augmented reality, these same concepts and principles will apply. You need to give people a sense of a home. You need to give people a sense of breadcrumbs and a sense of space inside of this new navigation world. So I think the overall impact is great. I would love to see if he revises it again for like the new emerging technologies. But you could take these concepts that you're learning here and then sort of graft them to what's happening now, and they still apply just as strong. So yeah.
And the only thing I have to push back on is that I'm sympathetic to this expressive emotion, because I do remember with Flash especially, there were some sick websites. Does everyone remember it was like this crazy techno, like futuristic website that was like blue? Does everyone remember this? I don't have much descriptions besides that.
Comment below if you remember this.
Yeah. It was I think a graphic design studio portfolio. It was like very techno 90s, like it was very glitchy, had like glitch art aesthetic, super sick. With a low humdrum like drone in the background noise as you navigate the website, super sick. It's just funny because then I'm reminded, actually in contemporary practice, like I don't know if you guys have been reading about Pretext. So Pretext is a new text shaping engine that is being published that developers are going crazy about, because now they're doing all this creative typesetting, like reordering a typesetting that directly does not affect the DOM. So it doesn't have all this, it's incredibly performant, but it allows for incredibly expressive typography. Like people have like a limited manuscript with the dragon that is up the initial capital letter, moves across the text, and everything
Yeah.
reflows automatically along the way. So people are starting to talk about how this which is AI based. Actually, the developer who developed it, what they did, they built from the ground up a new protocol, right? From using AI to design to produce it. And people are thinking this might be a new era of, like, again, this creativity explosion on the web, especially now that it's performance in terms of dealing with the problems of the older CSS style of working on the DOM. It's just it's too costly for performance purposes. So as a tension part is that I wouldn't penalize this text for that point, but that tension is in there. I think that's very fair. And I think we're actually seeing today, I think in general, actually that's a problem. Actually, and I am seeing it, to be fair to Michael about this. People are saying, but what's the point of this? Like, what? Why are we seeing these dragons go across the page? Like, why do we care? I think it's actually the part of the tension is that if we just have a pure optimization attitude, then you're going to go, well, no, I don't care about this. And it kind of sucks. Like, that takes the heart out of life. Come on, man. You got to be more to life than that. That's just my reflection on that.
Yeah, no, those are great points. And you're talking about all the, like, it seemed like every design studio had an amazing website and it was an experience and going through their work. There was also another one. It was called like Radio Soundwave, I remember. And they took all these album covers and they literally brought them to life, like animated style. And then they would, it was almost like a DJ mix of all these songs that were on that album and seminal albums that are out there. And it was such an experience. We'd watch it for hours, just have it in the background. I mean, like, and you don't really see that anymore because it's all switched, to YouTube and podcasts and these other things. So I guess maybe that expressive part of where I thought the web was going to go was cut off, and it became more commerce or practical based, which makes sense. But that's the kind of like emotion that I'm still kind of looking for. Is like, you're right. What is the purpose of the dragon tail? It's like, well, sometimes it doesn't have to have purpose.
I love that when I was reading about it, the dragon flowing through the typography, someone was like, well, there goes usability right out the window. And like everything we fought for. But then it's like, well, then maybe not, though, at the same time, because it moves out of the way, right? So it's like you can read it and let it move out of the way. And maybe will be features where you can turn it on or off as you want it. Humans will always find new ways to express themselves with new technologies, right? And bring the beauty and the creativity into the things that we're doing and that are emerging. And I think this is the exciting forefront of like WebGL, Web 3.0, where we're going, because these versions of the web that we've had for years, kind of like you said, it went towards like a capitalistic commerce priority. So everything did have to be like stripped clean and boring and just simple presentation. But we are at a point now where it's this weird experimental tipping point where everyone's leaning towards messy and experimental and chaotic again. And now, is that going to be the thing that gets you hired? Well, it depends on industry, your client, who you're trying to appeal to and reach. You still need to be able to do the probably clean commerce stuff too. You still need that in your background. But if you can show that you have like experimental techniques and you can find a blend between usability and experimental, now that's the unicorn right there that we will be all looking out for. But I have also seen really amazing web projects where now I think it's with the power of like WebGL and like the just the browser's rendering capabilities, you're getting what essentially is like 3D renderings of like space. And like there was one website where I clicked through and it was like, as you were clicking, it was like you're moving through space, like physical world, and you're following along with this story. And it's thanks to the combination of like animation being introduced and motion being introduced and 3D being introduced all at the same time. These browsers are just getting more and more capable, which I think is an exciting point of, that we're at, because things got pretty damn boring for a while, and it's just it gets stagnant and stale. But this is really exciting to see where we're headed, and things will break for a while. People will get creative and then messy, but then we'll come around and kind of standardize it again, I think.
Duly noted. All right, let's transition to the wildcard segment.
Right. Wild card coming up. There we go.
So as Michael's loading it up, the wildcard segment is when we have these random prompts. We just do a little transition spinner, and we do a little response based on what prompt we got.
All right, let's do it.
We're in it. Spin that wheel. Is this a new one? Are we getting a new one?
I think we got a new one. Oh, we're going to adapt this into a 3-panel comic. What would the first panel show? Oh, this is awesome.
This is perfect.
Illustration style. It's like this is like designed for this. Man, the synchronicities of this event, of this critique or feedback session is amazing. I feel like a very confused individual, like looking at a web page, going, "What is this? What am I seeing?"
Yeah.
Is that literally? That's it? That's the first panel of yours, Thomas?
That's what I'm thinking for mine. What do you got, Michael?
I said, are you reading my notes? That's exactly literally. It's literally someone staring at a screen, trying to like, what do I do next? Basically, like confused. That's like exactly what I was thinking as well.
Please tell me Matheo is looking for like an image. I actually does it. Here, Michael, switch over the camera.
Yes,
I found it. It's this right here. This will be the first panel for me when he's illustrating the point where you have to sit down and do an interview with the user. And what you're going to realize is as they're looking at the thing that you designed, they're scratching their head and they have no clue what's going on. And as you ask them to talk out loud, you're going to get funny little things like, I'm not quite sure what this means. And the designer's like, or groaning their teeth like, I designed it so you should know exactly what it means. So yeah, that'd be the first panel.
Yes,
this spinning wheel gave us the best prompt possible for this book. I swear.
Yeah,
I agree. I've been on both sides of usability testing, and one of the most defeating things, well, when the person was doing it with me, is seeing like just the sorrow in their eyes about what I was saying about it, because I actually had a higher design value. I have no idea what to do, because I was pretty blunt about it. But then when you're on the other side of it as well, and when you're doing it, it's like your heart sinks, because it's like you literally you have to go back to the drawing board, and that's such a painful thing for a designer to and you have to go through that to understand it. It's really good for designers, but it hurts. It hurts in real time.
It hurts. I remember the first time I had developed the e-commerce website from pretty much ground up, WordPress. Thank God for WooCommerce, and but it was a pain. And then I'm usability testing our e-commerce website with the team members, and oh man, just to see the look on their faces, and I was like sitting there biting my tongue, like I can't guide them, I can't tell them, like I've got to let them figure it out. And my heart sank when like they would just get some things wrong, that I was like, I spent so long designing this idea, this thing, this way this is going to present itself, and the heuristics, the language, and the buttons, and they don't get it. Yep. So yeah, I had that like heart sinking feeling in my gut, and I had to go back to the drawing board and completely change the way that I looked at designing for the web and writing for the web and the heuristics and the language, because I had to find their language. I was a designer using design language to try and describe what I knew, and it didn't click, for these other people. So I'm like, wait, no, I got to learn how do they call this by? So like card sorting exercises helped, in one-on-one interviews as follow-up interviews like that, to sort of pull out the keywords that the team was using. And then I rebuilt the whole information architecture with their keywords, with language that they were just using in conversation and with customers. And then all of a sudden people could navigate and get through, and it was just really impressive. Then I had this like glow up moment of like, hey, that worked.
Love it.
I think a general heuristic is you're going to be wrong. Like you will be wrong. Maturity in design is just coming to a conclusion. You know what? Whatever I do for my first pass, whatever I do, I will be wrong.
Yep.
It will suck. Yeah. It will be wrong. And it is accepted. You're like, that's okay. And that's okay. That's okay. You can always revise. And that's why Type Thursday, shall we transition since?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're slightly out of sync. I actually was about to segue into Type Thursday LA. That would have been a slick move, but we didn't even do that. But with that said, hey, listen, this is Type Thursday Book Club. It's all about process. That's my segue. It's all about process. It's not the one thing, not the one time. It's a process. Yes. So we have next week Elements of Typographic Style, which we've already been previewing. That I think it's a great combo with this book. Don't make me think. Add that with pair that with Elements of Typographic Style. You got yourself beauty and efficiency all put together. It's fantastic. Followed by grid systems and graphic design, and then we're offline for Type Thursday LA, which is gonna be a great time. We'll let Matheo talk about it in a second. All right, so listen, this Type Thursday Book Club. Go ahead, check out the books. Come hang out with us in live chat. Like, subscribe. We're on YouTube. Be sure to check us out and be notified when we do our next sessions. And these are on these Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. There you go. I'm like, what time zone is over there? Okay. It took me a second. I was like, what? Okay. And yeah, Matheo, tell us about Type Thursday LA. What's going on over there in 2 weeks?
We're so excited for this upcoming event because we launched this campaign identity that uses graffiti art, and one of our team members, Rachel Fujita, she's like, I'm so inspired. She's also loves doing graffiti art. She's like, I want to make this graffiti artist lineup, and I was like, let's do it. And then as we're designing, I reached out to a friend of mine, Jorge Gomez, who's at the bottom left there. That's Jorge Gomez. And I was like, yo, Jorge, we're doing this whole identity around graffiti. You're a graffiti artist who's been doing this for 25 years in LA. Would you be down to present something? And the last time he had presented was during the pandemic, when it was Michael Mondragon and I running online events for our friends in LA and all around the world who tuned in. And so that was the last time Jorge Gomez got to present at Type Thursday. It was not in person. So now he'll be there in person presenting a project that he's working on, and it'll be so cool to have him. He also worked and collaborated with Rachel on these artworks. So the tag, the early bird graffiti style, is actually his handwriting vectorized, digitized, and then us adding our Type Thursday spin to it. So yeah, if you're like to meet people, network, and you want to see great work, and get some feedback, come to Type Thursday LA, hosted at HMCT. Shout out to our friends at HMCT for hosting us at Art Center in Pasadena, April 30th.
Fantastic. And by the way, the chat has been on fire. So I should check the chat now. Yes, and we have some new people hanging out.
Brittany, thanks for joining. Hi. Hope this was helpful. And Andrea, the design planets are aligning. The design planets are aligning.
The synchronicities were wild today.
Yeah.
Thank you all for participating. This is fantastic to see that. Oh, and look, Matheo, your clone is in. Oh no,
doing double duty, working chat and hanging out with us, doing both.
I had to work the chat.
Yes, so, absolutely. Hey, listen, come hang out with us. Come read the books. Come have the discussions. You can always disagree with us too. You say, "No way, that's not where that's a 5-star. It's way lower than that."
Yeah, we want that. We want contention.
Yes, we want the drama. We want the drama. Let's get the drama. It's been Type Thursday Book Club with Thomas, Matheo, and Michael. I want to thank you all for your time and hope everyone has a great week. I'll see you all next time.
Good night, everyone.
Later, gang.
See you, everybody.